Okay, what is up? This is the intro to the second unit we have today. Here's what's on the document. Okay, if you're on site, obviously you got a packet with the stuff, so don't rewrite the problems down. So it says solve the equation for the variable. So solve the equation for the variable. You people in the classroom, you don't have to recopy down the directions. And make your 8 boxes if you're virtual. Okay. If they're already on your packet, then you obviously don't have to. Okay, they give us this first problem. X plus 7 equals negative 11. Now we're not given a replacement for X. That's because it's our job to figure out what the X actually is. Okay, our job is to solve for X. So I put X equals. I have to find what number, if I add 7, makes negative 11. So there's a technique to this that goes pretty straightforward. First off, you're going to make a wall kind of, because it equals has two sides, this side and this side. You're going to make a wall on the side that contains the X that we're trying to find. Okay? Now make sure that side, you know your operations, so you just have the X and the 7 with the plus. So I'm going to circle the X. Okay? And I have to get that 7 out of there. So I'm going to put 7 underneath. And some of you might think, well, I learned this in middle school, the opposite additions to subtraction. You do the opposite. Most of the time, yeah, but I kind of like you to think about it in a different manner, okay? If I'm at positive 7 on a number line, I need to get that to 0. I need to get this 7 to a 0. So if I'm at positive 7, to get to 0, we're going to the left. Okay, when I go to the left, that means subtract 7. Okay, don't do that plus negative stuff under here. Okay, so if you're at 7, you'd have to go 7 to the left, which is minus 7. Then I go to the other side of my wall and subtract 7 from the constant that's over there, the negative 11. So I line up the equals, and I have X. 7 minus 7 is 0, so I can cross that out. And then negative 11 minus 7 is negative 18. So that's our answer for the X. Now you can check your answer by substituting negative 18 in for X, adding 7 into the original problem, and see if you get negative 11. So if I'm at negative 18, I go 7 to the right. Okay, so negative 18 is here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm at negative 11, so I know I did that problem correctly. Okay, next one. 8 equals X minus 2. So equals has two sides, this side and this side. I put a wall on the side of the X. So the operator over there is a minus 2. Now I don't like minuses at this point in the class. Eventually we'll deal with the minuses, but right now we want to make them plus negative. So now I have this X and I have this negative 2 I need to get to a 0. Okay? Well, if you're at negative 2 to get to 0, you have to go to the right. Okay? When I go to the right, that means addition. Okay? So plus 2. Plus 2. So I line up my equals. 8 plus 2 is 10. Make sure you're lining up the equals. And we have X. Negative 2 plus 2. If I'm at negative 2 and I go 2 to the right, I'm at 0. Okay, so we cross that out, and that's my answer. X equals 10. Okay, next problem. X plus 10 equals negative 10. Solving for our X. So I got two sides of the equation, this side and this side. So I want to be working over here because that's where my X is at. So the operation's a plus, so I circle the X. Now I have to get that 10 that's with the X to a 0. So if we're at positive 10, to get to 0, we go left, which means we would apply the subtraction property of equality. Minus 10. So line up your equals. You got X. So negative 10 minus 10. So if I'm at negative 10, minus means I would go to the left like I would when I add a negative. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm at negative 20. So negative 20 is my solution. Negative 2 equals negative 3 plus X. Okay, the X is on this side of the equation. So between the two things we have over here, we have our plus sign, so we have our operators. Okay, it's a plus operator, so I circle the x. And I have to get that -3 to a 0. So if I'm at -3 to a 0, we'd move right, which means I'd add 3. Left means you would subtract. And then I go add 3 to the -2, because -3 plus 3 takes me to 0. I just saw that. Okay, so I've got x over here. -2 plus 3, so I'm at -2, and if I'm adding 3, I go 1, 2, 3, and that's 1. So 1 equals x. Okay, now the game changes. 3x equals -48. So x over here. Now what are my operations? Well, there's no sign, so that'd be times. When you have either a times or a division operation, you're going to want to circle that. Okay, see up here I was circling just the x because there was no times or no division operation, but when there's a times or division, you're going to want to circle it. Just trust me here. So the operation I have now is multiplication. Okay, now when we're thinking division multiplication, we're not thinking get it to 0. We're thinking what's the opposite of multiplication? Division. So when I have to divide an equation, I want to underline both sides. And I want to put whatever number's multiplied by x, 3, underneath both lines, okay? Because I'm dividing by 3 here, I divide by 3 here. Now, let me explain line up the equals. Let me explain what happens to x over here. I'm going to randomly pick a number. I'm going to take 50. I'm going to times it by 3, and then I'm going to divide it by 3. That takes me to 50. Now I'm going to pick 75. I'm going to times it by 3, and then I'm going to divide it by 3. I'm just back to 75. I'm going to take another number, 61. I'm going to times it by 3 and divide it by 3. So really what's happening every time is I end up with the 61. And that's no different here with x. If I take it times 3 and divide it by 3, the 3's cancel, and I just end back to x. And over here, a negative divided by positive is a negative, and 48 divided by 3 is 16. You can use a calculator for that. Okay. So that is how you handle a multiplication operation. Okay. Okay, negative 4.4 equals negative 4x. Wall on the side of the x. So the negative 4 in the x is a times. We want to circle it. So to undo a times operation, I underline both sides and put the factor that multiplies x, which is negative 4. Negative 4. Not negative 4.4. Negative 4, a lot of people get confused about what number they got to put underneath the lines. It's the factor multiplied by x. See, that's not multiplied by x. It's a negative 4. Okay, so over here, negative 4.4 divided by negative 4 is 1.1. Then remember, when I have a factor of x times negative 4 and divide by negative 4, they cancel, and that gives me just x. So x equals 1.1. Okay, next problem. Negative 2x equals negative 14. So there. The operations of times, you always want to circle your times operations along with the x. So the opposite of times negative 2 would be divide, and when I divide, I underline both sides, and I place the factor multiplied by x, negative 2, underneath each line. So I line up my equals, and I have x, because I'm just timesing and dividing by the same factor here. Now on this side, negative 14 divided by negative 2 is positive 7. And again, you can always plug it into the original equation. So the original equation said negative 2 times x equals negative 14. So what's negative 2 times the 7? I just replace x with 7, and I get negative 14. Okay, next problem. Negative 5x equals 15. So the operation's times, so I circle the times. Okay. So again, I divide both sides, underline them, and place the factor multiplied by x, which is negative 5. So I line up the equals, this will just be x, and then a positive divided by a negative is a negative, with 15 divided by 5 being 3. So again, negative 5 times negative 3. Well, let's make sure that that's 15. It is. I'm good. That's always what you can do to verify your answer. Am I going to make you do it? No. But if you're curious, that's how. Okay, make the 8 boxes if you're in the notebook. Packet's already there. X over 6 equals 8. So the x over here. Now the operation is division. Like with multiplication, you want to circle the dividing number along with the x. So the opposite of division is to multiply. Okay? So to multiply, I place dots on each side of the equation for multiplication. And 6 is the dividing number I'm trying to get rid of, so it's 6. So I line up the equals. Remember, having something, whether it's x or a number, if I times 6 and divide by 6, those go away and it becomes just x. And on the other side, 8 times 6 is 48. Now in the original equation, okay, right here, so x is 48, I think. I'll take 48 divided by 6 and make sure that's 8. It is. Okay. Okay, 16 equals x divided by 8. So now the x is over here. It's x and 8. It's a division operator, so I circle the division. And then I got divided by 8, so I'm going to do the opposite, which is times by 8. Line up the equals. You have x on this side, and then 8 times 16 is 128. Now let's plug it into the original equation. So x divided by 8. So I think x is 128. I'm going to take 128 divided by 8 and make sure that that equals 16. Yep. Okay, next one. Negative 9 equals x, negative 3. So the operation's x over here. We have a division. That's all. The only operator we have is division. So I circle it. And the opposite of divide is to multiply by the same factor that's down here, negative 3. Remember, multiplication, division, you're not thinking about the number line. That's with addition, subtraction. Okay? So I line up the equals. I have x over here. And then negative divided by times a negative is a positive with 27. Okay? So if I plug 27 in for x, 27 divided by negative 3 is negative 9, which is exactly what the equation says. So that checks out. Okay, x over 10 equals negative 22. So I make a wall here. The operation's dividing. Again, you always want to circle your multiplying or dividing operators. Okay? For later on, that's really going to help. So I times by the factor of 10. Because this will just give me x on this side with the 10s canceling. A divide by 10 and a multiply by 10 just cancels. And then negative times a positive is a negative. 22 times 10 is 220. So I'm going to take my calculator. I'm going to plug negative 220 in for the x and then divide it by negative 3. Or sorry, my bad. I'm on this one. Negative 220 for the x divided by 10. Negative 22, exactly what I'm supposed to get. Okay, next problem. 3/5 x equals 12. So I have a fraction, that's okay. So 3 and 5 is divided. We're just going to call that 3/5. And there's no symbol here, so that means times. Again, you want to circle the times operator. By the way, make the wall, you're over there. So the opposite of times is to divide. When I see that dot there, I know I have to divide. So I'm going to underline both sides and put 3/5 on the bottom. Because a times 3/5 and a divide by 3/5 cancels, giving me just the x. Now, you can do 12 divided by 3ABC5 on a calculator. You can also put your 12 over 1. Instead of divided by, you're going to write times, and you can flip the bottom to 5 over 3. So 12 times 5 is 60, 1 times 3 is 3, and then 60 divided by 3 takes it to 20. Okay? So if I think 20 is the answer, I'm going to take 3/5, 3ABC5, and times it by 20. Because 3/5 times x equals 12. Does 3/5 times 20 equal 12? Yes, it does. Okay, -4 equals 2/3 x. Okay, so make the wall on the side of the x, 2 divided by 3, otherwise known as 2/3. 2/3 and 2 divided by 3 mean the same thing. And then x isn't on the fraction, so it's times x. So I circle. And the opposite of times is to divide. So I underline both sides and put 2/3. So line up your equals. We're going to have the x on the, it doesn't matter what side the x is on. Then I put negative divided by positives and negatives. So I can put 4/1 and then times and then flip that to 3/2. That ends up with 12 divided by 2, and that's 6. So -6. Okay, into the original equation, we can take 2/3 times -6. Is that -4? Yeps, it is. Okay. Okay, next one, we got 5/8 x equals -15. So what are my operations? Well, we got 5 divided by 8, which is why it's 5/8 times x. Circle the division times. So we divide both sides by the fraction multiplier of 5/8. So I line up my equals. We have x, negative divided by positives and negative. And I would put 15/1 times 8/5. So 15, or you can also do it like this: -15 divided by 5 ABC 8. Okay. So that's 120 on top, that's 5 on the bottom, and that divides into 24. So -24. Okay, so it'd be 5/8 times 24. Or -24, my bad. -15. Okay, last problem. 1/4 x equals 2/5. So x is over here. I don't care about what's on the other side. Divided in times, so I circle that whole thing. Because remember, division in times needs to be circled. Okay. Then opposite of times is divide by the fraction 1/4. So 2/5 divided by 1/4. You can do it on a calculator, or you can put 2/5 and then switch the division to times 4/1. It's going to be 8/5. Now, if you did that on a calculator, you got 1 3/5, but that's the same as 8/5. So I'll accept either 8/5 or I will accept 1 3/5. Okay, whichever one you get. Okay, so let's recap here this video. The operations plus, I just circle the x and get the positive to a 0 by subtraction. Okay. The operations minus, I circle x, make it plus negative, and to get a negative to a 0, you add the positive number. Okay, if the operations times, you want to circle the times part with the x, and then divide both sides by that by whatever's the x multiplier, 3. And okay, here's another thing. When you put the times, and it's by a negative, you have to divide by the negative of that number. You can't, and when you're dividing, don't switch it to +5. You're not doing the number line, so you don't switch it. And if I see division, I circle division along with the x, and the opposite of divide is to multiply each side. Now, if I have a number divided by number times x, then it's like a fraction multiplier, so I divide by the fraction.